The reading for today from the Big Book is on page 151, the last paragraph. In AA, I hear sometimes, there are two surrenders. We surrender to alcohol, we do the steps, and then the mental obsession is lifted. So here, now and then, a serious drinker, being dry at the moment, says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take a half dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. He cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. Can you talk about this second addiction to self? And so I'm going to reread this paragraph, but replace alcohol with self-will. Now and then, a serious self-willer, being surrendered at the moment, says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem self-willers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take a half dozen decisions and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his surrender. He cannot picture life without self-reliance. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with self-reliance or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end.
Well, thank God that's not my present experience. Yeah, so Paul, can you hear me? Yeah, Paul, alcoholic. Welcome, everybody. Yes, thank God that's not my daily experience. A lot of people would say you could replace the drinking with thinking, and it would be getting to the underlying addiction, which is the addiction really to be the thinker, really. Yeah. So, but really, again, thank God I don't have this feeling. I never really gave much thought to the word abstinence, but I have a whole lot of feeling about it now, which is awesome. Over the years, I've experienced an abstinence of the problem doesn't exist for me anymore, and I am just a lucky one because that urge combined with the decision based on an urge, drinking and using. I've never had a strong feeling or a thought about drinking or using since I got sober. It'll be 33 years in a couple of days. That's just mind-boggling, because a lot of times you find a solution, but the problem is still very, very alive and well. So it seems almost like a battle. It's sort of like trying to put like an ointment on a puppy. Yeah, the puppy will fucking struggle and fucking doesn't understand why, and is biting and everything like that. And it just doesn't, there is a solution, but the problem is still alive and kicking. Well, in my experience and observation, the problem, the radioactive core of the problem was removed. It's just mind-boggling. So a large call for vigilance, maybe was in the beginning, but as the habits changed through taking the suggestions of AA and, getting commitments and doing what we do, the habits quickly and slowly changed over a short period of time. And then I was able to travel lighter based on the principles that I was adhered to day in and day out. But that urge was removed immediately to drink and use, which maybe I was confronted with what am I going to do with all this time and all that stuff, and maybe I felt uncomfortable quite a lot of the time, but never did it lead me to thinking drinking was a good idea or drug use. So I was thoroughly convinced, uh, not by myself or through myself, but through some other power. And I really believe, in my experience, the conceding to myself that I was screwed, or the admittance, was in the innermost, just as a way of not saying it was in the thought system or in the mental condition. So, and obviously, a lot of people feel the disease after the drinking seems to stop, the thinking continues. And of course, the problem resides in the mind. It doesn't reside in the bottle. It doesn't reside in the syringe. It resides in the mind. These things are used to amplify certain qualities that cause more irritability, restlessness, and discontent. And every time we try to put out the fire, we increase the strength of the fire. It's because we're relying on a failed system that can't get out of itself, literally. And so we've come to the conclusion, many of our community, and they shared it with us in a simple statement: self can't get out of self. Maybe at the beginning I had an understanding of that. I don't feel it was too solid. But now that's one of the most important statements I ran into in our community, because it explained exactly the conundrum that I'm in after the drink gets stopped and after the drug usage stops. Is this reliance or identification as self, and how a lot of things I've come to believe in, or at least I have to seem to listen to it, the narration in the head, the opinions that come out of how I perceive things, all of this stuff is constantly reinforcing this idea of being self. There's very little shit of how my head works that reinforces the idea that I'm spirit. It doesn't. It reinforces an idea that I was Paul, that I'm going to be Paul, and therefore I am Paul now. And that Paul is a carrier of alcoholism. It's not alcoholism, but alcoholism to me amplifies self. It amplifies the expressions of self. So instead of self-will, it's an extreme self-will, yes? Or as they say in the book, self-will run riot. So that would be an extreme self-will. So alcoholism, in my feeling, amplifies something that's there. Maybe not in its full bloom, but the alcoholism will allow it to bloom in some nasty ways. So this is just an opinion of a person in the program. I believe the root of the problem is the act of being identified as self. And it's self that has defeated us, and it has been allowed to and is allowed to defeat us by our identification as self. So when we meet what's defeating us in our lives, inside, wherever, we call it me. And therefore the defeat continues before you stop drinking and after you stop drinking. Many of us, we've been sober for quite a while, but we're still in the defeat of self. Yeah. Or at least it's severely limited possibilities that AA has offered, like being able to enjoy peace of mind, be rocketed in the fourth dimension, all these possibilities have not become available, and I would say because of the bondage of self, not because of drinking or not drinking, but the bondage of self. So I feel you, of course, the drinking and the using has to stop and stay stopped for other investigations to continue, to get down to the root of things. And I believe the root of things is an act of being identified as something that we're not. And I think it's demonstrated pretty clearly because when people come into the first inventory process, the fourth step, they come in with the feeling that the resentments they now start looking at are theirs. The fears they write up has been theirs, and their future fears will be theirs, and their future resentments will be theirs. And they're acting out in the pursuit of what they want, and harming people will be theirs. And they'll go into the inventory and they'll leave with that same idea that the manifestations of self are mine. I don't see how you can't recognize that as the activity of the being identified as self. I mean, how can we keep calling the manifestations of self ours when it's described very clearly that we're represented as us and self is represented as self? And it says being convinced that us, no, it doesn't say that. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways has defeated us. So we will now look at its common manifestations, and that's the introductory inventory. Resentments, fears, harms done to others, in the pursuit of what we want, looking at the sexual behavior of our life. Yeah? So sometimes there's a part of the disease, the most important aspect of the disease, seems to have an immunity when it's put through the spiritual car wash of the 12 steps. It doesn't get washed away. It gets wet. It regroups. It has to now maybe wear different clothing and go to different places, but basically it's intact and it's manifesting through us and defeating us while we've been sober for 30 years. So the disease continues under the umbrella of recovery, I feel. So, and it's based on us not knowing it. So part of the platform of these talks and the commitment to keep coming back is to reinforce this idea and then see if it proves valuable to you by entertaining it. Yeah, and see if you start traveling lighter in the design for living, in the way of life that AA has offered. And if you do, and you are, well, more will be revealed. As it says in the vision for us, this power is going to constantly reveal to us what? You'll find out. Yeah, you'll find out. You'll be here to observe and reflect on that power that's doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. And the evidence will be as clear as day. Yeah, that something is doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. And yeah, so I can go on and on, but a guy in the other day brought up something very good, Germany. Well, maybe because I think it's very good because I've attempted to share it many times, which is this seemingly easy transition of giving credit and great honor to that which is doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves while in recovery, yet still taking responsibility for all that was produced through us by the influence of the disease. I don't see why there can't be an application of what we so easily apply to life as saying, the grace of this power is doing whatever, to the past the lower power of the self or the parasite. And maybe we could become free from its constant renewing of the guilt and shame based on past events that really we didn't have much say in them happening. Yeah, if I introduced drugs into my system, I was apt to do almost anything. I just don't see how we can keep on keeping on with the story that I did all that. I just don't see it. I think it's a dead end, and I feel like it's time for it to be dropped. Yeah, I really overdue. Yeah, I mean to be here 33 years later and still be defined by the guilt and shame based on behaviors I exhibited while under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I just don't. Yeah. All right. Thanks. So.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Um, Richard has his hand up. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Richard.
Hello, Paul. Nice to meet you. Okay, so I appreciate what you just said. I feel like I needed to hear that. Um, I've been sober for 5 days. I was sober for 15 months. Willpower, just totally full willpower, no 12 steps, anything. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get past the urge, how to stop drinking again, because it's always been, I've always been able to quit, but it's always kind of been through trauma. I've had some traumatic experience that helped me quit. So, and also like, if our true form is spirit and there's no past, how do we kill the disease or the parasite that's inside us, and get rid of it completely instead of just making it, change its clothes or whatever, but it's still dormant inside us? Is there a way to completely get rid of it? Thank you.
First of all, you're not going to get rid of it. You're not going to get rid of it. That's my humble opinion. To me, that's the basis of the program. It's not a self-help program of how to help self defeat an aspect of self. It's a reliance on a higher power program where you admit that you can't do things, and in that admittance, those things get done. So it's a trip, yeah. And that spirit of understanding, I feel, carries through the whole program. So I would admit that I can't pull it off, yeah. And in a way, that's sort of a surrender. You surrender the wheel of the car. You don't get out of the car, but you surrender the wheel of the car, yeah. And stop driving the bus, so to speak. Yeah. Now, you're going to end up at that conclusion. It can be the easier, softer way by learning from others, or you're going to learn from, in your own life, because it's not going to keep working. Yeah. You may be able to will yourself into a few months of whatever, but it's going to rise up again. Yeah. Because in a sense, I try to use the image of it being foreign to us because we're identified as us, but it is an aspect of what we would call us, yeah, on a much larger level. So you're not going to get rid of it, yeah, and it's not going to go away. What happens is it loses its power because its power is our power. Our power gets transferred to it through identification as it. Yeah. When you start seeing it as not you, you weaken it, you weaken its grip. Yeah. By wrestling with it, you strengthen its grip. So yeah, I feel and maybe, just maybe, you're gonna need a way of life to help you, because you the way of life may be presented as one pointed, which is to recover from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, but its benefits are many. And a lot of things that would bring about, let's say, a more balanced you, Richard, like a sense of belonging and doing absurd stuff that make you feel a little better, would maybe go a long way to keep the parasitical tantrums at bay. Yeah. So the way of life is very important if you're a real addict or alcoholic. And that's someone that does not have a stable ability to control their use of drinking. Yeah. So you may think you have a stable one, but if it only lasts for a year or 8 months, you don't. Yeah. So you may fall under the category of a real addict or a real alcoholic. And yeah, the solution of AA is a reliance on something greater than self. It doesn't need to be called God. It's just recognizing what you're not. Well, it's explained well, and perhaps there's a better way. Trusting something infinite rather than finite self. So maybe it's good to learn what trusting finite self looks at. It's usually a faith in the thoughts that are being presented about you and life and them and and the future and the past, because there's a whole lot of false evidence being presented during the day. and without us knowing it, we're in consent with a lot of that false evidence. So false evidence is appearing real, which is an acronym we use for fear. Yeah, false evidence appearing real. We play the role of how false evidence seems to appear real. So, yeah, I hope that helped, bro. And if you haven't done it, it's probably pretty clear you're not going to be able to do it. So you can't vanquish something in a way that's not there unless you're there. So have you noticed there isn't anything called alcoholism? There are people that have been taken over by alcoholism. So there really isn't a parasite without the host. So the host is essential for the parasite to express. There isn't a thing called alcoholism walking around. It's something that is a possibility in us. Yeah. So, yeah. And I feel really the alcoholism is an amplification of something that's in place, which is an identification as self, as the primary point of narration. Yeah. So we live as if we're a thing, an individual, long-lasting, separate thing, and then we yearn for unity. I'm not a real believer of that assumption that we're a long-lasting, independent, separate entity. So I would say I feel we're more of spirit than of body and mental activity. And but the body and mental activity can't produce that a possibility because it's already there. You find it not by affirming it as a mental physical thing, but by negating the mental physical thing. That's how the spirit gets affirmed. Yeah. Not denying, that's a mental activity. Negating. There's a recognition that if I am spirit, well, that would be the highest form of maintenance of a spiritual condition, is being one. And then if you are a spiritual condition, that's one of the requirements of your daily reprieve, is the maintenance of that spiritual condition. You can't maintain a spiritual condition better than being one. That would be the highest form of maintenance, is being one. And if you're being a spiritual condition, you have the opportunity of that daily reprieve from alcoholism. Yeah. So, thanks.
Thanks. Chris, you're up next. Can I ask you to unmute?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, been listening to a lot of your stuff lately, and I've been in and out. The story is, anyway, that since I was 15, and I'm at about 7 years sober now, and there's been a lot of frustrated misunderstanding as time has gone on with the stuff in the big book and the stuff that I'd heard, and having worked the steps and having come out of the obsession, and it is not a problem anymore. However, reading into it more and more, taking people through the steps, things were just not adding up. And I think lately, I heard you recently, and I mean, like, I heard the message of what you were saying to the point that it's changed a lot of this, my spiritual practices and inquiry. It's whereas before it was the sort of protestation to say in the big book, you know, selfishness, self-centeredness, this is the root of our problems. And my interpretation of that, and I really shouldn't speak for anybody else, but my understanding of that was that I have this quality of selfishness that is the problem. That is to say, I am selfish. And a lot, it gets heard, and it's sort of from that, listening lately, just this last week, and seeing hearing the message of the presupposition of a non-existing entity trying to get liberation from something that doesn't exist, suddenly snaps all of this big book information into something that makes sense. It switched. It was just like one missing linchpin of information. That's not to say my experience as of yet is unity or whatever, but it's, I can read this book and go, oh, rather than what, like, and you know, there's just so much terminology in there that all of a sudden clicked, and it's stuff that I've heard you say, but you know, we considered its common manifestations, or we looked at causes and conditions. I had no clue. I could not put that together for the life of me. Causes and conditions of what? But now that we're talking about manifestations of something believed to exist that doesn't exist as self, I don't know. I'm pretty grateful. That's all. I'm just, you know, as far as you've provided something that I needed to get a hold of, and it seems like it's taken years and years, and I hope it grows from there, but it's a catch-22, you know. I'm meditating. I'm doing self-inquiry. Yeah, I'm looking at my thoughts. I'm taking inventory of my character defects, and all of a sudden it's just a prospect. Now it's a hypothesis that I'm working with, at least. Right? It's not necessarily a hardcore belief. I'm saying he's absolutely right, but it's the only thing that makes sense. And so I'm grateful for the perspective, man.
Well, Chris, thank you, and please keep reporting, because this is, you know, I have no reason to share, and this is one of the many reasons why we share. Yeah, is the hope of what you just expressed. So, yeah, this power, you know, this power constant reveals, but we sort of need the eyes to see it to understand what's being said. Yeah, it can be misconstrued if the selfing claims it. It turns it into something else, another order, or another way of beating ourselves up for not being enough and shit. It's very tricky. So the difference between self-knowledge availing us nothing and knowledge of self being very valuable is very clear. Yeah. So because knowledge has a potentiality. It's based on what's before it. So if self is claiming the knowledge, it avails us nothing. Yeah. If the knowledge is about that which is claiming knowledge, that's valuable. Yeah. So it's just it's a tricky little maneuver, but it's seamless if you keep following it. It has a seamlessness to it that's very, very revealing. So thanks for that share.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Very
Paul.
much. Thanks. Yeah.
All right, Allie's up next.
Hi, thank you, Carl. And Paul, thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. This is my first meeting. I was directed to this, not my first meeting with you, I guess. But I am relatively new to the 12 steps. I'm a love addict and codependent, but I think I've known for, and I have food problems. I've known for a while that the problem is thinking, and specifically the thinking around a sense of separateness and the fear that that sense of separateness creates. And I wanted to ask you specifically about step 3 and a decision to abandon self. I feel like I'm going in this circle where I've been working a 2-step program for about a year, and I keep thinking about half measures avail us nothing, and I feel like even the way I'm working those first 2 steps are half measures because I don't know how to surrender to a program of self-abandonment from a place of self-will run riot. I don't know how to sort of absolve myself of my overwhelming sense of sort of egocentric smallness and importance. So, and I think it was useful to hear you saying the thing about, you know, wrestling with something, it gets stronger. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about, especially being in a program like SLAA where there's bottom lines. And I'm like, well, calling attention to the behaviors that are hurting you, isn't that just going to sort of fan the flames more? But I wanted to ask you about that, and maybe specifically based on something you were saying for the first question, you gave this metaphor of, you said, what the note I took is admittance as surrender of the wheel of a car. You're still in the car, but you're surrendering the wheel. So that, and I guess I'm wondering like what the car is. Is the car just me being alive? Is the car self?
Yes.
The car is me being alive. Okay.
Yes, or just this living. Yeah. See, remember the 3rd step has the word care in it. Making a decision to turn your willing life over to the care. It's not, that has a much different flavor than turning my will and life over to God, whatever. It's not saying that. It's saying you're turning your will and life over to the care. And in a way, really, the care is represented by the new way of life, you know, the program and the community and stuff. Yes? And then you see a grace working through that. And what gives, you see, the idea of working on yourself as self, yes, may be a way of reinforcing self. Yeah? But that doesn't mean that's what happens. It's a possibility. The grace of the program can override that possibility. Yeah. So the claiming of the action by self may not be fulfilled. That action will be given new meaning. Yeah. Yes. So you're introduced to a power, a source of power, let's call it the big dog, and you've been living under a source of power called the small dog that's been masquerading as the only dog and implying it's very, very big. Now there's been a new power introduced to the mix, yeah? And therefore, when you were doing an action and the selfing would just claim it, and it would give that action its meaning, it's being overridden by the grace, yeah? That's the beauty of it. So don't be afraid, just do what's asked of you. And don't worry about what your intention was. It's sort of like if I'm serving sandwiches to people who are very hungry, they're not questioning my intentions, why I'm giving them sandwiches. They want the sandwich, yeah? So the service is working. Yes, I am being of service. Now my head may be saying, no, you're not, you're just doing this. But in fact, that story is getting overridden by something. That person's getting a sandwich, yeah? That's helping them. So this idea of, it's almost like a mental constipation when you enter. So you now start thinking all your motives are seen from the past motives. They're being overridden. We're in a new way of life, having a new employer, being all powerful. It's taking care of us. Yeah. This is what's going on. So the way of life and the suggestions of the 12 steps programs, however whatever banner they're under, codependency or food, there's a grace available. Yeah, there is. There's a power available to us that will not allow the selfing to claim every fucking thing and make up a story out of it. Yeah. You'll start having real effects in a real life. Yeah. And you may have a story that, no, I'm not serious about this, but you're sober at the moment. Yeah. Something is doing for you what you can't do for yourself. That's the program. So on that, what else was, I think that, hit what you were saying. Yes.
Yeah.
And remember, a lot of us have relied way too much with the intellect that has been claimed by the selfing. Yes. It's sort of like keep it simple, stupid, sometimes works the best for certain of us. Yeah. So just do what we do. Yeah. Don't be in the outcome business and just see what occurs. And I'll tell you, this way of life works concerning the insanity that precedes the first binge or the first drink or the first whatever. Yes? Because this isn't about stopping, it's about not starting. Yeah, it's just a very clear way of life. So I hope that was helpful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and if you want to come back, and because my real belief is there may be very different ways, different vehicles of addiction, but if you go back way, it comes from one source, which is self, the bondage of self, really, which is the mental addiction. The mental addiction spins out all the other aspects of addiction. Yeah. But if you get to the root of it, it's something that's, we're doing something to try to replace something we think is missing or some other aspect, and we're wrong. The idea that you're separate and it's never going to change isn't true. Yeah, it just basically is not true. So that's what some of the downloads are. What's constantly revealed to us is having the eyes to recognize a lot of false evidence that's being presented as real can be. And so we stop being misled by what we're listening to all day, because we stop listening to it with so much devotion and fucking, blind belief. We start questioning shit, Yeah, so I hope it helps, honey. Come back and stay. Yes, just if you can, make that decision to turn it over to the care of something else. Yes?
Yeah, it just feels like an intellectual exercise. So I sort of know that I'm not doing it. I don't have that innermost thing, but I feel like I need to keep doing the steps to stay with action, even if I think my step 3 is a load of shit.
Well, it's true, because step 3 is very hollow. It's followed by 4 through 9. The working steps is what brings weight to the 3rd step decision. Yes? So if you read the book of AA, it basically says, you know, you promptly get into action and you start learning how to do inventory, and you start doing inventories. It's a decision that's followed up with action. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The decision itself is hollow. Yeah. What fills it up is 4 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
So just, if I don't know about with food or not, but they must have an inventory process. Yes.
I think so. I'm not in the food program. I'm doing like a sex and love addiction program. Yeah.
Love. So they must have an inventory. Yeah.
I think so. I'm working out of the big book, so we're kind of this weird niche of
All right,
it.
well,
So I'm basically, yeah, I'm following the big book instructions.
well, I hope you have a sponsor. Well, get into doing some writing today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ellie. Eric from Toronto is up next.
Eric.
I can't unmute myself. There we go.
There you go.
Guys, Eric, alcoholic addict. Yeah, so I really
Hold on 1 second, Eric. That's the spirit of recovery. I can't unmute myself. That's the whole point.
So, I like that. Yeah, so I was taken through this process about 8 years ago. A woman sponsor of mine, she took me through this process. It was called the no choice and the don't care process. And she mucked me through this book, right? And through this process, I started adapting this complete acceptance around everything that's happening in my life and turning it over to a higher power. So I can't care what's going on in all these aspects or areas in my life. And I continuously keep practicing the don't care. And there's 2 types of don't cares. For me, there's either the fuck it's, right? Or there is the turning it over to a higher power where God's going to take care of me no matter what is going on in my life today, right? So I've been around for a bit, and you know, my willpower always wants to take me back into self, right? So I always have continuously thoughts. My disease manifests itself in many different forms. So today I don't obsess or think about drugs or alcohol, but it could be other things. It could be money, it could be women, whatever it is, right? Shopping. So, you know, just coming around and like listening to you and trying to like identify that those thoughts are not me, they're just thoughts, and I can just allow them to flow through me and not grasp them is a beautiful thought, really. I mean, to work and practice on those types of principles, the feelings where the feelings just allow them to just feel through me, that I don't have to hold on to this feeling of shame or guilt or depression or anxiety or whatever it is, and just allow it to, it's just a feeling. This too shall pass, you know? So when I was taken through the book, you know, the step 3 prayer, the step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And that's on page 59. But you turn the page over, it says, being convinced we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will, which is my thinking, and my life, which is my action, over to God as I understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? But the word care is removed out of this sentence, you know, and it just shows me that once I make the decision that, like, you know, I have a problem, I can't manage, right, my own life. No human power can relieve my alcoholism or addiction. So some sort of higher power has to come in. And that God could and would if he were sought. So now I need to start seeking this power. you know, and like, I liked what you said, because a lot of the time this power is in the rooms. Like you said it in one of your talks that I just heard, you know, the grace of God is in the rooms. I feel the energy in those rooms. Like you were talking about sharing your 5s and 6s in the rooms, you know? And I like that, right? Like I have to shed light on a lot of my secrets, or else they're just going to be, you know, within myself. You know, I got to bring them out. You know, I need to talk about things. I can't just keep hiding things and, you know, allowing them to foster within myself, right? So for me, it's just continuously keep growing and doing this work. But this whole thing that you're talking about is a lot of new, you know, it's very new to me, you know, the self, and, you know, self can't get out of self. And, you know, I love it. I love it. You know, like I come from the lineage of like Mark Houston, and, you know, I have a sponsor that was his sponsor, and I love listening to a lot of his talks. And, you know, and then I start hearing your stuff, and it really starts making sense to me. Like I want what you have, you know, like I don't know if your mind is always shut off or not, but that's what I want. I want peace of mind. And when I maybe my mind isn't shut off all the time, but I know it's definitely shut off when I'm working one-on-one with people. You know, when I start giving this thing away, I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not thinking about my problems or this or that. I'm seeing a light go on another guy working one-on-one with him, and all of a sudden he's starting to get this thing, you know? So I just wanted to share that, and I'm really grateful that I was able to, you know, connect with you, Paul, and this beautiful group, and yeah, and Mike, and I just want to continue to be here and learn, and, you know, that's it, really.
Well, great. Thank you, Eric. Yeah. We're happy to have you. Yeah. That's all that occurs. Yeah, like the key is already in the ignition. Yeah. It's already in the ignition. So the message is just hopefully brings the immediacy to the solution, sort of like people would say, thy will be done, but really through observation, thy will is done. It's, you see it now. Yes. And the being convinced of these certain facts lead to other conclusions, a whole lot of other conclusions, where something, just sort of like it says in the third step, where it talks about we sincerely take this position of reliance on a higher power, whatever, and then we get established in that position. So when there's the being convinced, yeah, gets established, a lot of other stuff becomes clear. Yeah, because now instead of having a shaky basis, you're on sound footing. Yeah, and things get solid, and there's more solidity brought to it. So Zen would say the effect of that would be blue is blue and red is red. You just start seeing things clearer. Yeah, and it's not about there's more seeing, there's just seeing more. Yeah. It doesn't like that you get more seeing, but there's seeing more. Yeah. So basically, and then you really know the problem by its absence, you know, just like you would know gravity and the effects of gravity by being in an anti-gravity chamber. You would realize, wow, now I know gravity by its absence. Yeah, the same thing with the bondage of self. You really understand the bondage of self when it's absent. When the relief is the greatest informer of the problem, the relief itself. Yeah, so, yeah, hallelujah. There is a solution. It may not seem so, but it is. There is. Yeah, and I know it seems like your role is so prominent, but it's gonna get decreased more and more in the process. There'll be less of you in it as it goes on, and you can see the change of effects if you go from page 60 something to 84, where it says, the problem will not exist for us. Yeah. And you'll be placed in a position of neutrality. It's not saying you will arrive based on your own merits in a to a position of neutrality. You'll be placed there sort of as if you didn't know what was going on. Exactly. So, and you will cease fighting everyone or anything. When I first read that, I felt, oh, another fucking order. Now I've got to cease fighting everyone and everything. How can I possibly pull that off? But now I have different ears and I see it as an effect. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's an effect. Yeah. I'll have many moments where I have ceased fighting anyone or anything. Is it I never fight everyone? No, it's just a moment to moment condition. Yeah. Hey, I'm in a moment condition of not fighting anyone or anything. And those moments pile up. Yeah, they do. And the problem doesn't exist for you. My feeling is, for that to stabilize, you have to see the problem doesn't exist as you. Yeah. Because I believe the problem is existing as us. So let's get clear about that, shall we? I think that would be nice. That's why we have these talks. One of the many reasons I come up with, seemingly. So, but yeah, if you could see in a weird way, what you are is a many splendid event. So, but the way we come to peace with something is to see it as other, and then you can recognize, obviously, it's a part of this huge us, yeah? But now it doesn't have all the attention and interest it was using to thrive in this little idea of self has gradually or quickly been removed, yeah? You've lost interest in self. You're not trying to not take self seriously. You're not taking self seriously. that's the growth of Rule 62, is you're not taking self seriously anymore. And therefore, you're taking a lot of other things, no things seriously. Yes? I mean, completely a turnaround. Yeah. To the point you could say, instead of thinking you're a mental physical condition, you're now not thinking you're a spiritual condition, but feeling or sensing you're a spiritual condition. It is not brought about by thought. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Oliver, you're up next.
Oliver.
Hello, my name is Oliver, alcoholic. Greetings
Hello.
from Milan. Thank you guys for the meeting. Thank you, Paul. I got a question again, maybe in some form it's already been asked. I recently had a change in perspective on how I look at my higher power. And it was always, my higher power was primarily always omnipotent. And now it's more like, I don't know, under the influence or what. I've been going to a lot of meetings lately. I've been going to non-duality as well. Sudden, like a realization that, seeing God as, or higher power as omnipresent rather than omnipotent. And it kind of, almost instantly, the change was that earlier I couldn't get rid of materialistic view on spiritual stuff. What can I get from it? When will I get it? Concerning about the result, about the outcome. I don't know if I should call it spiritual materialism or materialistic spirituality, but concerning what will I get and when the hell will I finally get it? And when praying, asking for stuff, you know, and I didn't like it. I was kind of aware of it and I didn't like it, but I just couldn't get rid of it. And since this kind of maybe not that, you know, relevant, maybe it doesn't sound that relevant, but since I'm having a perspective of my higher power as omnipresent, which literally means present in the air in this room, for instance, I kind of lost, not only lost perspective of, you know, or concern about the outcome or what will be or what will I get. I also have a will and kind of a desire finally to do program, finally to do inventory, to do step 4, to do step consequentially, you know, step 9. And I kind of really want to do it. And it's just, you know, this change in perspective of, you know, God being, from God being omnipotent to God being ever omnipresent. And I don't know if this, you know, is interesting question, but I'm still kind of, you know, catching my breath and you know, trying to figure out what the hell happened, because it really feels like in my life and in my present recovery, like a major change. I recently had a relapse three and a half weeks ago, and I went on a 12-day binge. And at the end of that binge, of course, I was quite beaten and felt awful. And there was a night in front of me where, you know, I decided not to drink anymore. And I knew it was going to be rather horrible with, you know, all the withdrawing effects. And that was, I think, the last time that I actually got down on my knees to ask God for something, you know, to ask for some kind of relief, to ask him to, I don't know, be with me or whatever, you know. And all I got was, you know, silence, rather spooky and hovering silence. And of course, I wasn't pleased at the time, but later I kind of look at it as the best possible answer that I could get, you know. Yeah. So that's kind of my question. That kind of pushed me, I guess, into the direction of, I don't know even why, you know, it started, it kind of happened spontaneously, just, you know, to see higher power as rather as omnipresent and not, you know, just all powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Well, you know, AA wanted to make it a wide door, so they came up with a very novel idea when he was talking to Ebby Thatcher, I think, about a higher power of your own understanding. It sort of gave Bill a permission to access that idea of God, because he had closed it down based on his behavior and his ideas. So it was very novel. So it was brought into AA as a working idea when you come in. It's going to change by the effects of the process. So let's say I come in with a higher power of my own understanding and I stay under the influence of AA. In my experience, it turned into I have a higher power of its own understanding. Yeah. So now I'm in a position of receiving revelation instead of defining a power. I'm I let it tell me about itself. I find that, and that was sort of a process in recovery. Yeah. So I started with my own understanding was there was a force that was going to look out for me, like the new employer idea. And then as I went with the program, I realized, you know, I'd much rather have a higher power of its own understanding than my understanding. It just seems to be, you know, putting a cast on a 1,000-legged event, whatever. So yeah. And when I describe it as a description, I say it's always available at all times, which would be that omnipresent. Uh, it's always available at all times, no matter where or where I am, and there's no requirements other than the ones I may entertain to meet it. Yeah, because I would say it's us. So yeah, I feel everyone. I think in the book, at least in the 12 and 12, it implies that that's a beginning understanding of my own understanding. And of course, it's going to grow as you move forward. Yeah. Because the thing is, you're going to be under the influence of this power. Yeah. You are. The program of recovery works. Yeah. I've seen a lot of different characters walk in, and a lot of them can stay sober a day at a time if they follow these simple suggestions and shit. Yeah. It's a working solution here, which is a lot to say because a lot of the solutions that are offered don't work a lot of the time. So this is you're going to actually sense something working in your life, I feel. I mean, unless your Geiger counter, your Geiger thing is turned off, and you're going to pick up something's going on. I mean, how many people see so many coincidences in their lives when they get sober? I mean, things just start happening and almost like divine choreography and shit. And so, I mean, the came to believe in my experience was observation. I observed I hadn't drank in 8 weeks. I had come to believe that something could do for me what I couldn't do for myself because I couldn't stay sober for a day. So that was all based on observation. So I feel you observed that presence and the effects, and then you come to other conclusions. Yeah. And some of those conclusions become the conclusion. Yeah. It's not like you're not laying down a new floor. You've got a new floor. Yeah. There's being convinced, and you've arrived at certain conclusions through the process of recovery. And now that's sound. It's not up for debate every fucking 3 months and shit. Yeah. And that allows you to become like a free range alcoholic in a way. Yeah. Because you're clear and, I mean, really, resistance is futile. You just recognized the inability to convince the programming that it's a failed system. Yeah, it's not going. Self is going to keep trying to get out of self. It doesn't see. It's not at the level of admitting that it's failed. That has to come from somewhere else. Yeah, that's my feeling. My head never came to the conclusion it was failed. Something brought me to that conclusion outside the system and told me, hey, bro, you're fucked and you're not managerial quality. Yeah. The system didn't tell me that. The system said, oh, you're fucked, but that's because this or that or that or that. It is. Go have a drink. Yeah. But something put an end to it by telling me, hey, bro, you're fucked. And you're not managerial quality. So what you're relying on ain't working, and it's not going to work. You cannot rehab that thing to a point where it's going to be a working system. You have to find another system. You want to call it spirit, and you need to have that guidance. It will come through the same mechanism, but its directive will be totally different. And you can see its different directive, which is you'll have it by giving it away. What fucking coke dealer ever follows that fucking principle? Yeah. You have it by giving it away. Yeah. So you learn a new system. Yeah. You not through the old system, but through the guidance of this spirit, it recovers, it rehabilitates the old system because it changes its center, which is self. you're not self-centered anymore. You're centered. Yeah. It's different, completely different. Yeah. And that centeredness gives you vision. You can see false evidence as just that, false evidence. Yeah. So it doesn't provoke an action. And an action, without an action, there's not going to be a huge consequence. And therefore, you travel lighter through your life because you don't fucking put your foot in your mouth every fucking day. Yeah. You want to, but it doesn't happen because you have a new power. By admittance of your powerless state, you now have power. Yeah. You have power to see false evidence, and that which used to move you into an action that produced heavy consequences doesn't move you into an action anymore. It doesn't. It may upset your head a little bit. So fucking what? I'd much rather have a little upset in my head than a 20-year prison sentence. I would. I see that as incredible progress. Seriously. Yeah. And man, fuck. I'm happy you're back, Oliver, but man, I don't think I wouldn't survive. There's no way. There's no fucking way. I can see me as an old man shooting coke in my fucking neck. I mean, it would be, I would have died before I even pushed the plunger. It would be, I would have had a pre-heart attack before the heart attack. So, you know, that life is over. It's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I could give a shit about it. Yeah, it's just, I think really a lot of everything that we're driven to is based on feeling dissatisfied and discontent. If you felt satisfied and content, most of your behavior would be radically changed. It would. Yeah. If your basis was satisfaction and contentment, a lot of the behavior that used to have a field day through you wouldn't even get to the starting line. Yeah. And this is what this way of life allows. It allows a whole new attitude and a new outlook. My attitude is I'm fucking pretty chilled out and okay. That's my attitude, and my outlook is that I'm in good hands. That's it. Yeah, my new freedom and my new happiness is a very intimate event. I can't really explain it to you. Yeah. To live free doesn't have to have a correlating picture of, like, you know, living on a cliff house and getting, you know, taking an escalator down to the beach with perfect waves all day. No, looking free will be intimate for you. Yeah. How it's like to be free will be intimate. Yeah. Free from the bondage of self. Yeah. So, thanks, man.
Thanks, Oliver. Paul, I don't see any more hands up.
Well, that would be good because my bladder is demanding some attention.
Dennis just put his hand up, man. You want to?
All right, go hurry up.
All right. Go ahead, Dennis.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Paul. I've been watching your videos. Never been on here. I wanted to get on here. I was in a meeting, and then there was one after the meeting. So, but you've kind of recharged my wanting the program. I didn't walk away from the program. I think we have about the same length of time, but I've listened to your talks for quite a few years. And I just want to thank you for the information and how you put it and how it makes more sense to me and how you've taken the program and described the self. And I just really, truly wanted to thank you so much for that. That's all I've got.
Yes, that's one of what you just said is one of the fruits of the seed assignment. Yeah, it's very nice because really that's all I really wanted. Yeah, it wasn't working in my own community, because they caricature, they made me a caricature. Yeah. Non-self Paul, Buddha Paul, fourth step Paul. Basically, so they thought they knew me, so they never heard me really after a while. So we put out a website to get it to other people, because I knew there was people in my tribe that this would really trigger something profound. So there was no stopping that which was compelling this action of sharing. So I'm very happy. Thanks for that share.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Yeah. And then say hello to the bathroom. Yeah. So we got Steve D. Nice to see you, Steve. Pleasure, man. Mike, as always, fantastic. Mike, I talked to Julie, so I'll tell you the information after I get off. Mike O, always. Paul, yes, you got another off day, Paul, but the weather's changing. Get ready, man. I got some good ones. Yeah. We got Eric in Toronto. Nice to hear from you, Eric. Yes. Rob Farr, as always. Fantastic pleasure, Rob. Thank you so much for just showing up. Really appreciate all you long timers. I really appreciate. We got Ruby Rose from Wichita. Nice to see you, Ruby. Beautiful setting, nice fire. We got Vicky. Yes, she's come out of the void to show us. Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah. We got Roman, as always. I love that radiator, Roman. Yeah, we don't have radiator at this house. We got whatever it is, central heating, something. We got, let's see, I lost them again. Let me go back. There's Roman, Eric. We got everyone there. We got, there's Fee. Nice to see you, Fee. This thing's moving today, pretty heavy. We got Suzanne, fantastic. A friend from the Endeavor Academy. Walter. We got Jacob. Nice to see you, Jay. We got Eamon. Nice to see you, my friend. Linda, a pleasure. Maggie, Chris M, Tom H, Richard, come with us and enter the design for living. Yeah? Yeah, please. We saw Walter from the Netherlands. Yeah, very nice. Okay, let me go to this one. We've got Stefan on Having Never Left. We got Kana. Nice to see you, Kana. We got Nina, not Mina, not Tina, but Nina. There you go. Always a pleasure, Nina. Leah, again. Oh, Verena, some of my 3 favorite. Very fantastic, right in one row. We got Dennis. Thanks, Dennis, for that. Those lovely words. Carl, thanks for the service, my friend. Yes, I like your the choosing of the readings. A lot is revealed in your choice of the readings. We got Izzy. Izzy, nice to see you. Michael S. He's the man of Madeira. Anne, she's the backbone of Zen Bitch Slap in the Zoom world. Nice to see you, Anne. Thank you for all the service. We've given up on the changing of the time, I guess. Who cares?
We'll readdress it in a week from Tuesday.
Leah, always a pleasure, Leah. I remember the first time I met you. Very nice. We got Chris B, Carl N. We got let's see. Well, I got Carmela T. Nice to see you, Carmela. Nice to meet you. Oliver. Yes. We got Ali. Nice to meet you, Ali. Yes. Yeah. You know, something is going to treat us a lot nicer than we treat us. Yeah. Yeah. You'll be surprised. Yeah. Yeah. We got Linda. Nice to see you, Linda. Yes, there you go. We got another Oliver. Oh, that's Oliver. He's with a hat on. We got Michael F. Nice to see you, Michael. Rick A. Rick A with the electric X-ray. That's nice. I like that. There's some people I don't see, so I'm just gonna say goodbye. Hey, thanks everyone. We'll be doing a non-duality on Saturday, and then on Tuesday, Thursday, we'll be back to the recovery. And there's people stay on after the meeting, so if anyone wants to hang out, that would be great. And I'll see you guys soon. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. See you, Mike.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.